Welcome, Pam. And today we are going to talk about repeating old patterns, specifically when it comes to subconscious patterns that we may be not aware of, how, we keep repeating the same things over and over in terms of behavior. And Pam is going to give us some insight in terms of how that works in the mind, in the subconscious, with all the things that happen with that, and maybe give us some indication of how we can deal with these things using energy healing. So thank you so much, Pam. Over
Oh,
to
you're
you.
welcome, Mira. So basically, when we talk about repeating old patterns, they can be generally there are three ways that we sort of set up those blocks that where they come from. One is generational, so we're not even aware because that's how our parents grew up, and that's how their parents trained them. That's how their parents. So, just is passed on from generation to generation, and we just grew up with it. Um, the other way is gestational, when your mom may have had traumatic experiences while she was pregnant with you, and those affect the baby. The third is environmental, which is what we're absorbing, the news that we listen to, the people that we talk to, and from the general environment of the people around us. So with generational, those are generally like our views about money, about views about how to raise children, how they should be. There was a time where children should be seen, not heard. So you grow up you don't realize that you've been shut down, and kids are normally just very playful, and they're not, I mean, at that age they're not responsible, so they're very carefree. But then they're stopped and they're told, okay, you can't do this, you have to do this, you must do this, this is how we do it. And so there's a lot of confusion as a child is growing up because they may be watching something different than shows that they're watching, and yet their parents are teaching them something different. And then there can be other trauma from abuse or whatever, because uh, and abuse is seen as different things. I mean, it can be mental, emotional, physical, because uh, if you've not had that loving relationship with your parents, then it's because they probably haven't had a loving relationship with their parents. And let's say there's this couple, they stay together because like it used to happen in the olden times, not so much these days, but even now, I mean, it happens quite often where people stay in a marriage for whatever reasons, reasons, for financial security, or for fear of being alone, or so even those are traumatic because they're living with the trauma and fear. If they're in an abusive relationship and they're afraid to leave, they're living with that fear day to day. If they have financial problems and they've kind of uh, you know are not managing their money properly, it's because even though they want to change, and they'll say something, oh, my parents did that and they never wanted to spend money. They just wanted to, they were so miserly, they would just hoard money, but they wouldn't give us this because it cost money. You absorb that, and without realizing, even though consciously you're saying, I will never do that, you still have that subconscious rail playing in the back. So you keep coming back to that for some reason and you don't realize it, but you're passing it down to your children. So, when those form blocks, especially if they're generational, they're old blocks and they're solid blocks. And then the environmental, of course, what's happening in the current situations, those also affect. But all of these, bottom line is energy healing breaks those blocks. energetically, we literally go in and submerge it with energy, break the blocks, and then replace that empty space now with positive energy. And if we don't replace that, I mean, that has to be replaced, because if it don't replace it, then um, something else is going to move in and you don't know what it is. So you have to make sure that when you remove something, that you replace it with something that you want there. And as we were talking earlier, and you gave the example of, this person who's saving money because they feel that need to save it for a rainy day, and they save, 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 and then suddenly, they blow it all and spend it all. It's again a pattern that, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because maybe their parents taught them that you need to save money for a rainy day, you need to have some sort of a cushion. So they're saving it. But then, in defiance to that, where they said that their parents are miserly, didn't want to spend any money, you know, they end up spending it all in a burst of rebellion almost to what they said they would never do, like their parents, right? And then they regret it because now they have no cushion. They feel insecure. So they start saving again, and they keep repeating the patterns. So those have their beliefs have formed the blocks, and those are what we kind of break so they can. And once it comes to the surface and they recognize what's happening and the pattern is broken, and the trust and the faith in the divine. We're divine beings, and we forget our source. Once we lose touch with source, then we only see what we have right now. We don't see the origin of where everything's flowing from. There's plenty. There's plenty around. There's no scarcity. But we have the scarcity mindset, and that is why things keep happening like that. Or if they've saved the money, and even if they don't blow it, they'll find sometimes that all kinds of bills start coming through. Their car breaks down, or something else happens that requires money. So they have to kind of spend the money. Either they have to spend the money on essentials, or they have to sort of I see the baby. And so, yeah, that's why, the patterns repeat. And this is how we can come in and help with removing those blocks so they can recognize the source of the patterns and how they can kind of bring themselves out of it. Because once you see it, and once that pattern has been identified and broken, then they can work to replace it with something better, something more productive, something that works for them.
Yes, I resonate with that a lot. And also something that you said about there's always abundance. If you know your source, if you know the source of all things. Because one thing that I learned, and I never heard the word abundance really until I was an adult. So there wasn't constant talks of abundance in my field when I was younger
Mm-hmm.
and coming up. And when I learned it, it really changed my view on how I look at things. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering from a perspective of maybe someone who doesn't have that mind view, or that this concept is new to. What do you think
Okay.
would be the easiest way for someone to kind of break those old ways of thinking before they look into energy healing?
when we think of abundance, we generally only focus on money or finances, but abundance is varied. There's abundance of love, of good relationships, of just general well being, of good health. You discount all of that and we just focus on the money. Money is just an exchange, a means of exchange, exchanging for services. We pay in, whatever dollars and cents or whatever the currency is, wherever anyone is. Um, but abundance is a lot more than that. And our reality is based on our beliefs. The richest people, the billionaires, they're always looking to make more money because what they're driven by is the fear of not having money, not having enough money. And they want more and more and more. And yet there are people who don't have that much money, who are just living paycheck to paycheck, but they're grateful for what they have. So they, um, you know, are happy in spite of the problems that they may be facing. So the belief system, the perception, all of that creates your reality. Like right now, okay, I am looking at, yeah, I watched this one video and it was really interesting because this lady defines, she says, I am looking at the lake behind my house. I'm looking at the greenery around. There's no distinct signs of war. And yet wars are going on. And those are some people's realities. So your reality is based on where you are and what you see or what you want to see. Even in the war zone, there are people who come out alive from there. In the most peaceful of situations, people die. So it's not that things are not going to happen, but it's how you perceive and how you incorporate that. And if you live with a grateful heart and with gratitude, you realize that you don't need to have everything or um, just always count. Okay, this is a little harsh, but a quote that I read is a cynic is a person who knows the price of everything, but the value of nothing. So when we live with that mindset where we know, okay, this is how much it's going to cost. Oh no, I don't want to do this thing. You're constantly calculating, then that's your reality because you're always making sure that you always have more in this column than in this column. But you're not appreciating the value of what you already have. So that mindset kind of holds you back from always having that flow because you're living in fear. And this is where, with energy work and understanding that the fear is what we're working, that's one of the blocks. And that is what the block that we would work to remove and restore the flow of energy. So you're living in the flow and not just seeing lack. And, you can be, I mean, there are many life coaches who will tell you to have a journal and write 5 things every day that you're grateful for. And you say, well, I have nothing. I mean, I have this. Well, if you're focusing on your problems, then obviously you're not seeing the things that you have. But if you really, even small wins, small things like, you know, I woke up this morning, I did not die. So many people didn't wake up. you know. So there are so many things to be grateful for. Even though my body is hurting, and there's pain because of my age, but at least I woke up and I'm still with my family, you know. Or you wake up without pain, you're feeling better, you're happier. So there are any number of things that you can find to be grateful for. And again, on the other side of the coin, there are any number of things you can find to complain about. So what you choose to do makes your reality. And based on that, you form beliefs. And how often we say, oh, so and so lucky, I never have such breaks. But you may be forgetting or not realizing or recognizing the breaks that you did have, And I mean, to give you an example, just like, I was reading the story of this one person. They, their mom, no, the dad had left, and the mom was like struggling. She lived in an apartment where, the people next door, the neighbors, they didn't know what was going on. But then one of the neighbors just realized that she's living alone because he didn't see the man around. So he was an older man, lived alone. He cooked some food and brought it over for her, you know? So she could have said, "Oh, I don't take charity, I don't want anybody here," because she's embarrassed and, that it's not perfect. Her home is not perfect. Or she could open herself and be grateful for the help that this person is reaching out with. So just find something, no matter how small. Yeah, you're muted. So no matter how small, that you can appreciate, and that changes the dynamics of where you are and how things will play out for you in your life.
Yes, I agree with you. And you said, even something small like being thankful that you woke up today, that's actually something
Yeah.
big.
Oh, yeah.
Considering everything that is going on in the world and how many people are actually dying. So I agree with you that even I would say things we overlook should be
Mm-hmm.
something that we feel gratitude for. And the most important thing that I learned is it's not about the circumstances. It's not
Yeah.
about what is going on and what you have and what you don't have and what's happening in your life. It's about matching the frequency and
Uh-huh.
the energy of what you want. So if you want to feel blessed and abundant,
Mm-hmm.
you need
Hmm.
to be in a state of gratitude. You need to be in a
Yes.
state of appreciation because
Uh,
nobody who has anything that they feel, I'm something, I'm successful, I'm happy, or whatever, are going around thinking, oh, woe is me, I'm so mad, I'm so sad, I'm so bad, whatever. They are thinking, what a wonderful day. I'm so excited. What am I going to do today?
uh-huh.
I've got so many options. Look at all these, things I can do. Look at how healthy I am. I can decide to do anything. I can look at
Hmm.
all my options of things I can eat. And it's even though those thoughts are not directly thanking for something, it is appreciation,
Yes. Oh, yes.
you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's also programming that thoughts, because the energy healing will do its thing. It will, remove the blocks and it will chip away at the blocks over time. But you need to help it along if you can,
Oh,
and your
yes. Absolutely.
thoughts, I feel, are
Absolutely.
important.
Because if we keep reinforcing the beliefs that form the block, then you're not helping yourself. You can keep chipping away at it, but then you're adding to it as well. So you need to change your mindset. You need to change your thinking, and you need to just be in a space, in a place of gratitude, and things are, we can say things are never as bad as they seem. And to somebody who has negative thinking and who's staying there in that space will say, oh, yeah, that's easy for you to say, try living my life. No matter how bad, I'll give you another example. Like, I remember one time we were, it was, yeah, we were at a friend's house. And I was talking to another guest, and we were standing by the garage door, that the door that opened from the house to the garage. And as somebody went through, and the door automatically shut, and the way where I had my hand, it shut on my fingers. And I was just cussing away, and I was like, "Oh my God." And then the lady I was talking to said, "No, no, 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 don't be grateful. It wasn't worse because it shut gently, but because I was standing there, that broke the impact because my knee hit it first. So it wasn't as bad as it could have been when it totally slammed on my fingers. And then I started thinking, she said, things can always be worse. So wherever you are, be grateful and know, because we are spirit, we are spiritual beings, we are energetic beings, and we have a lot more power. And if we do create our reality by our thoughts, our feelings, and what we allow into our space. So if we are creating that, we need to ask ourselves why we are creating this. And how can I change it if I want a different result? But we keep on doing the same things, expecting different results every time. And that's not how, energy or the universe works. Whatever you put out, that's what you get back. So that's why it's important to see that what we are putting out, what we are voicing, and what we are bringing into our life, that it is something that we are willing to have in our life, that we want in our life, not something, um, and when you say, "Oh, I don't want this, I don't want this," you're focusing on what you don't want, and being the sort of thing of your focus, that's what is brought into your life because that is what you're focusing on. That becomes your reality. Even though you keep saying, I don't want it, but because of the focus that you place on it, that becomes your reality. So if you say that I am this, I want this, then you're focusing on what you actually want. And that is then what comes into your space and your life.
Yes, I don't know who said this, but there's the quote that goes, where focus goes, energy flows. And it's exactly
Yep.
what you're saying. If you focus on things you don't want, you're going to get it. If you focus on things you want, you're going to get it. So where the focus is what you are calling in, and attracting more of. And I think that is half the battle won.
Oh, yeah.
What one thing I've learned from you is not to think of energy healing as something that's going to automatically fix your whole life. Yes, it's going to
Yep.
help you chip away at the blocks that are causing major grievances and issues in your life. It's going to help you
Mm.
break away the things that are unseen in terms of belief systems that you've built over time. But you need to be a willing participant in the sense that you need to help it along. You need to watch your
Oh,
thoughts. You need to do
absolutely.
what you need to become this new version that you're trying to create. And again, we're talking about patterns that we're trying to break. It's up to you. When you see and identify I'm doing a pattern, now is the time to say, okay, how can I change this? What led me to this? Is it a system of thoughts that I had? Is it a specific thought? Was I triggered by something? And be conscious about those things. Journal, like you said.
Another thing to be very sort of cognizant of is not to, when you're doing self reflection and you're acknowledging what the issues are, don't shame yourself. yourself it is something that happened, whether you consciously chose it or you didn't, but you chose it based on what you knew then. So don't shame yourself, don't judge yourself, but do it as as just an assessment. Okay, this is where I am, but this is where I need to go. How am I going to get there? So when you're doing that without feeling guilty or shameful or judging yourself like, oh, how could I be stupid enough to do that? Then you're defeating the purpose because you're again struggling with another block, you know. So doing self-reflection and self-assessment is important. It is absolutely needed, but to do it with a mindset of and be brutally honest with yourself. Um, but while you're being brutally honest, soften that with, okay, this is where I was, this is what I did, these are the decisions I made, and that's what led me to this, but this is not where I want to be. So, how can I change that? Go back to the source and say, okay, this is where I messed up, but don't say, oh my God, I messed up and I'm never going to get ahead of myself. No, 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 don't do that. Just in a very detached way, but honestly, just assess that because once you know what you are dealing with and what you're trying to keep out of that and what you're trying to release, then you're able to do it. But if you're constantly, throwing in emotions and guilt and shame and judgment, then you're just stirring the pot constantly and the dust is never going to settle to have the clear water. So no matter how muddy the water is, like when during the rain, the water is flowing, the river is so muddy, and yet when the rain stops and the river is simply flowing, the dust is settled at the bottom and the water is clear. So just be aware of that, and just there are a lot of angles to this energy healing, and just because you see the one path doesn't mean that that's the only one because and because of what their blocks are, how they were set, what their beliefs were that were formed based on the blocks, and how solid the blocks are, how rigid their beliefs are, how open they are to addressing those. And all of these factors are going to contribute to how long it takes for the healing to take place and how deep they are allowing themselves to go. Because, like said before, like the layers of an onion, you peel one and there's another and another and another. And you can go back lifetimes that you didn't even know. You can go back generations with your parents and their parents and their parents because they grew up a certain way and they passed down certain beliefs. And then that generation passed the beliefs down to the next generation. So this is where you can also help your family break that cycle, you know. Because and I've seen that in our classes, it is amazing to see some people who have finally kind of brought the family together and addressed some issues. Some of the families are not that open to doing that, but they have worked on themselves, and yet some of them have achieved great results because their families were open and willing to kind of look at that and work with them and allow them to kind of break those blocks and end that cycle of trauma, especially the generational, because gestational is like, just with your mother and that one particular this thing, time or period of time, or the environmental, which is constantly going to be happening. But if you address the generational, which are the deepest wounds, which have come down from generation, and you're not aware because you don't know what the other generations dealt with. So those are the deepest ones that they need to work with. The others are a little bit easier. So again, it's doable. It's not an easy path, but it doesn't have to be difficult if you're open to it and you allow yourself to you sort of remove the blocks because sometimes what happens is as the blocks are surfacing and people are saying, oh no, no, I don't want to deal with it. I mean, it's not mine to deal with, it's I don't want to deal with it. And they suppress it again. So they are not serving themselves. I sometimes when it's very, very painful, give yourself time, you know, just put it on the back burner, but just don't take it off the stove altogether. Put it on the back burner so you can come to it in small increments and deal with it. But deal with it, you must to get rid of it. So that is, I mean, your participation is definitely very essential. And again, it's, what is blocked can be unblocked always.